I smiled at her, tall and slender, with long ash blonde hair. I'd never seen her more beautiful. She looked a little like she was from the 60s with her cheap bracelets and denim shirt, though she wasn't a teenager in the 60s yet. A cab pulled up and the driver didn't honk. We hugged and I kissed her cheek. "Thanks for everything, Daddy," she said. "You're welcome, Princess," I said and got in the car. "University?" the driver asked. "Was it that obvious? I've seen a lot in the last few days. Goodbye hugs on Digg Street, taking passengers to the train station. It's that time of year." I thought it was called Digby Street. It is, but most of those big houses have been converted into apartments for students. I've heard that some letters from parents these days are even addressed to Digg Street. I take it you're saying goodbye to your daughter. Yes. So Digg Street is a safe neighborhood? Absolutely. I've never heard of any trouble there. Anyway, they all look out for each other. What university does she attend? At the London College of Music, I said. Good for her. Is she going to be a rock star? Who knows? Can't say I'm against it. Where's your train headed? To Newcastle. Is that a long way to go? Yes. Even with a few stops, it'll take over 6 hours by car and less than 3 by train. Unfortunately, Georgie still gets carsick sometimes. He was a nice man, and I thought he was sincere, not just trying to get a bigger tip, but he got one anyway. I had a lot of time to think on the train. My wife Gwen, who stayed in Newcastle, didn't want to come to London. She had told me this when I bought the tickets. She doesn't like long goodbyes and was more comfortable just seeing us off from home. But I was happy to accompany Georgia. She had always been a daddy's girl, and I wanted us to spend as much time together as possible. The night before, Friday, I had met her roommate Sheila, who seemed quite poised. I collapsed on their couch, which turned out to be surprisingly comfortable. It took both of us to get all her luggage on and off the train. She insisted on bringing her guitar, one of several instruments she knows how to play. I'd like to think she got that talent from me, and so our little bird flew from the nest. But so many 18-year-olds go off to university and don't come home in their 20s. She may meet Mr. Right before she graduates, and many students are picked up by London agents and hired right away. Back home, Gwen and I chatted about her that Saturday night. We both missed her in our own ways. We made love that night, and it was like a healing process. The next morning, Gwen took the dog out for a walk around the common area, her Sunday morning ritual. Gloria is only a mongrel, but very much a mama's girl. We had discussed the possibility of her living in London with Georgie, but decided that she wouldn't want to part with Gwen. Besides, we weren't sure if the London landlord would allow pets. That's just me, Mick. Lived with 3 girls whose names begin with G, and now there are 2 left. I was just pouring coffee when the phone rang. Hi, Dad. Did you have a good trip home? Not too boring? Hi, yourself. Yeah, it was good. Are you ready for the first day tomorrow? Yeah, Sheila and I are both ready. We have classes together. We're going to run over to the Sunday market to get some stuff. Is Mom walking Gloria? Yes. Good. Please don't tell her I called. That sounds intriguing. I forgot something important. What? My rabbit. What, Roger? How could you? I know it was stupid. I meant to pack him last, so he'd be first when I got here, but I forgot. Where is it? Under my pillow, unless Mama moved it. And you don't want her to know? Not really. You know how she used to say all the time, "Do you have everything? Are you sure? I'd never get over it." Got it. I'll find Roger, put him in my briefcase, and send him off work tomorrow. Thanks, Dad. I went straight to Georgie's room. I have a tendency to forget things. Roger is quite small compared to toy rabbits, and he was lying where she said he would be, a little flattened, but fine. Dropping the pillow back into place, I noticed something in the bed. I lifted the blanket and extracted a hair. Taking it in my hands, I examined it. Mine is short and brown, while Gwen's is medium length and blonde, which is where Georgie got her color from. This one was long, black, and curly. I knew for a fact that Georgie had broken up with her boyfriend from grammar school a month before her last semester at school. She'd grumbled for a couple of days, but soon got over it. They'd never had anything serious, and I was sure they'd never had sex. Anyway, he had russet brown hair, like me. No, the hair in front of me was that of someone Gwen must have dragged into this bed while I slept over in London, and she had the good conscience not to use the marital bed. I only knew one other person with hair like that, Pedro, a young clerk in my office. He had recently moved from Wales, and one night we took him out to dinner to help him settle in. After he left, Gwen remarked how handsome he was. He was 20 years younger than us, but it was obvious that she was attracted to him. He couldn't have had the same effect on Georgie. She was staying with a friend that night. She'd never seen Pedro. He looked like Brian May, the lead guitarist for Queen, and I'd often heard Georgie try to imitate that style of playing, so she'd be sure to mention it if they met. But Gwen had asked how he was doing every week since he'd arrived. On Monday, I did my postal duties and saw Roger off on his way south. I casually asked the receptionist if anything interesting had happened during my brief absence. No, everything had gone smoothly last Friday. Oh, and Pedro had taken the day off too. He was looking for a place to live. It made sense. He was still living at B&B, and I wondered if he'd found a comfortable place. Soon we were sitting around the coffee machine. Did you manage to find a house for Pedro? Yeah, I got lucky on Friday. The house isn't new, but I like old properties. It's good enough for 6 months until I find something more permanent. Great, said I. By the way, how's your wife doing? Gwen, isn't she? Never better. That's good to hear, he said and went back to his desk. That evening, back home, I got the inevitable question as we ate dinner. Has Pedro settled in? All good. He's found a place to live. Oh, good. Is it close by? I didn't ask. We ate in silence for a while, and Gwen didn't mention him again. Tessa called me at work today, she said. I know Tessa. You met her that Wednesday when you dropped me off at yoga class when my car wouldn't start. She was an instructor, well, she still is. You said she looked like Morticia Adams, played by Angelica Houston. I remember. Long, straight hair, high cheekbones, very attractive. I was tempted to do yoga myself. It wouldn't hurt to stir Gwen up a bit. She ignored him. She wanted to know if I wanted to go to South Shields with her next Saturday. Harvey Nichols is closing, and they're having a final sale. Women's fashion is on the market, right? Yes. We thought we'd make a day of it. You know, bargain hunting. It's only half an hour by train, so we could have lunch at the wine bar. Why not? Have fun. And we thought, well, I was wondering if you could pick us up at the train station. Let me explain. You and this Tessa go shopping for expensive clothes. I stay at home and look after your dog while you spend my hard-earned money. And then I organize a cab service when you're done because you're both too drunk to drive. That's your plan. Exactly. Where does she live? She lives with her father on Morpeth Road. Then we could pick her up on Saturday morning. I'll drive you both to the station. Great! You're the best, Mickey! She always called me Mickey when she got her way. Saturday night, I'll give you the best sex of your life. It would be nice if Tessa did, too. You don't stand a chance with her, you dirty old man. The next day, Pedro knocked on my office door. Can I have a word with you, boss? Sure, come on in. I'm moving to a new place soon. Do you need another day off? No, nothing like that. I'll do it over the weekend and unpack everything over the next few evenings. I was just wondering if you and your wife, Gwen, would like to stop by my place Friday night. I can return the favor and cook dinner for you. You cook? Yes, sort of. We'd be delighted. I'll tell her. Naturally, Gwen was delighted too. The rest of the week went quite normally. On Wednesday night, Gwen went to yoga class as usual, but on Thursday I called her and told her that the power was out at the company. There were important things to finish, and I had to stay until it was turned back on. Of course, that was a lie, and after Pedro left work, I called again and told her I wouldn't be home until 10. She, as usual, expressed concern about me eating something, and I told her I would stop by on the way home. I knew she had Pedro's new phone number and gave him an hour to get home and get a call from her. I left work only an hour late, not 5. The house was very quiet when I arrived, and I silently entered the house. Gwen wasn't downstairs, and I heard noises coming from our bedroom. This time it wasn't from Georgie's room. She had either become confident or careless. I crept up and listened outside the door. She let out a high-pitched scream, and I swung the door open and burst inside. "Jesus, you scared me!" she screamed. I looked around. Gwen was squatting on the floor in just her underwear. In front of her, also on the floor, was the bottom drawer of her dresser. We both spoke at the same time. I said, "What are you doing?" And she said, "What are you doing home this early?" I backed away. "Sorry, I didn't mean to startle you. The electricity was back on and we finished early." "Well, you're just in time. That deep drawer slipped out while I was checking it. It's too heavy for me to put it back in place. But if you do, I won't have to take everything out." While she put her robe on, I put it back away. Downstairs, she was heating up a beef stew. "So what was so important in that drawer?" I asked. "That you had to strip down to your underwear to find things?" Gwen looked at me perplexed. "I told you, we're going shopping on Saturday. I've been trying on some old dresses, checking which ones don't fit or are out of fashion so I can buy a couple of new ones. And in that drawer are all my scarves, gloves, and handbags. While I'm at the sale, we can stock up for next year. I may not get that opportunity again." I felt a little silly, but I hoped it didn't show. Without embarrassment, I watched them closely on Friday night. I must admit that Pedro did a great job with dinner. We had salmon steaks with steamed vegetables and a wonderful homemade creamy dressing. "This is just delicious," Gwen exclaimed. "You can invite me back again." "Thank you, you're welcome any time." I wondered if she really meant "you can invite me again," and I wondered if he meant we were both welcome, or just Gwen. Under the pretense of a glass of water, I checked his kitchen basket. No sign of prepared food or takeout, just a box of cherry cheesecake from Sara Lee. He'd made it all himself. "Anyone want dessert? It's cheesecake," he asked. He brought it over and put it into 3 servings. "Ah, you didn't make it," I accused him, smiling. "It's Sara Lee." "My bad," he admitted. As befits victories go, it was pathetic. We retired to his living room and he turned on some romantic music. He and Gwen finished their white wine. I stopped at 2 glasses as I drove. Neither of them offered to dance. The only contact was when Gwen slapped his thigh. "Well, we have to leave, Pedro. We have to get up early tomorrow." "Going somewhere?" he asked. "Shopping in South Shields," she replied, leaving her hand where it was. "Well, have fun," he replied. Her hand gripped his thigh tighter, but it might as well have been an effort of will. In the car, we waved goodbye to each other and he went back inside. "I'm cold. Could you turn on the heater?" she asked. "I need to go out for a minute. I forgot my scarf." She returned and knocked on the door. He opened it and they talked briefly. Then they went inside and the door slammed shut. She appeared half a minute later, just enough time for a goodnight kiss. I couldn't understand why he didn't just hand her the scarf. Surely it was lying right in the hallway. "That was great," she said, buckling her seatbelt. "What was—" "Pedro's salmon dinner, of course. What did you think?" The next morning, I drove Gwen and Tessa to the train station as agreed. It was drizzling rain and they both had their hoods on. It took an earthquake to keep the women away from the sales, after all. When I got home, Gloria came over and sat at my feet. "You're not fooling me, Mutt," I told her. "You're only interested in me when your mom isn't home." She turned around and stood on her hind legs, trying to climb up next to me. "You can't climb up here, you fat lump. I'll pick you up if you tell me what to do next." She made a brrr sound in the back of her throat. "Phone! Good idea!" I lifted her onto the couch and went to the phone. The stupid bitch jumped down and followed me. I called Pedro. I'd invite him over for a beer. Okay, I doubt he'd go to South Shields either. What would Tessa do while he had Gwen? Or was he sleeping with both of them? No, how could that be? He'd only been in the area for a few weeks. Still, it would be reassuring to keep him in sight, so I called. There was no reply. I turned to Gloria. "Any other ideas?" I looked around the house for clues, condoms, soiled panties, new sexy lingerie, but found nothing. Then I called the yoga class. No, Tessa wasn't there today. She'd gone shopping. Well, at least she hadn't snuck back on the next train. Maybe Gwen did. Tessa could have been an accomplice. Gwen buys a couple of items on sale and goes back to Pedro's for her session, leaving Tessa there with the shopping. Should I call Pedro again? Enough! This was getting stupid. All I had was the curly black hair from my daughter's bed. Maybe Georgie had a lover? Maybe she'd met Pedro after all. When I picked them up at the station, the rain had picked up. They were both a little drunk and loaded with shopping, a lot of it. Gwen had bought so much stuff that I wondered how she had time to go to a wine bar, let alone sleep with someone. Later, when she unpacked everything and showed me what she had bought, I found myself paying attention. She certainly found some bargains and didn't spend as much as I had feared, and she splurged on some sexy panties. "Now we can be noisier when Georgie is gone," she said. I decided to keep an eye out for when they were worn, but other than that, I gave up. I was clearly on the wrong track. Sunday night, we made love, trying out the see-through French panties. It was one of our best sessions. Monday morning, I quickly checked that the new panties were in the laundry basket. They were stained, my stains. I silently swore to myself that this had to stop. I went into the shower and washed away my suspicions. It worked. At the office, I managed the day's business without even thinking about my curly hair. It was over. At the coffee machine, I overheard the office banter. "So, Pedro," one of the girls said, "have you had any luck finding female company this weekend? Have you found the right miss yet?" She was clearly fishing. "No miss right yet, Sarah, but I spent all day Saturday in the pleasant company of a very attractive older lady." "Ooh, tell me about it." "I wanted to move here because my aunt retired and moved to this part of the country. She's not very confident driving anymore, so I spent the day with her, sorting out closets and weeding the garden and stuff, and then drove home. Now I have her car." "Cool. Maybe you could give me a ride sometime. Where does your aunt live?" "In South Shields. She has a first-floor apartment near a big shopping center." I called Georgie just before I left home. I wanted her to cover for me the next time I spoke to Gwen. I told her I was due to visit her in London the following Friday night, and I was staying with her. "What are you really doing, Daddy?" She sounded concerned, of course. "You know it's your mom's birthday soon. I'm planning a big surprise for her, and it's going to take some preparation. Don't worry, you'll find out soon enough." She agreed, and I told her our story. "Georgie called me at work today," I said over dinner. "Problems?" "Not really. She and her roommate have a gig on Friday, not passing the hat at some pub, but performing at an expensive club, and they're getting paid for it." "Wow, good for you." "Yeah, she called because she's nervous about it. She asked if I could come down and watch. You know, clapping loudly after every song." "Why not? It's only a 3-hour train ride. Will you be stopping?" Exactly what I thought would be her first question. "Yeah, their couch is comfortable enough. I can tear myself away from work this afternoon. Want to go?" "The big couch?" "No. We'll have to stay at a nearby hotel." I held my breath. If she wanted to come, the story would get complicated, canceled gigs and so on. "I'd love to." Damn. "But it's our busiest time at work right now. I can't take time off. You go." I exhaled. That was the first time I'd ever heard her company had a busy period. Finally, it was Friday. This was my last attempt. I would either catch her red-handed or quit this nonsense. After lunch, I called Gwen and told her I was on my way to the train station. I even parked the car there just in case. Then I took a cab straight home. I couldn't believe she couldn't take time off work, so I waited for her in the little office. She never went in there. I made it just in time. 30 minutes after I took my seat, I heard the front door open. So much for being busy at work. I didn't see her, but I listened at the office door. "Mick?" she called out. I smiled. That's exactly what I would do. Then in her normal voice, she said, "Then let's go straight upstairs. I'll make you dinner later." 2 sets of footsteps went up the stairs, and they went into Georgie's room, right above me. I gave them 10 minutes. As I climbed the stairs, I heard sounds. They were clearly from the realm of sexual pleasure, nothing like the grunts of replacing heavy drawers. So here I was again, same scenario, different door. I swung it open and stepped inside. Gwen was lying naked on Georgie's bed. She was in the classic 69 pose. Her legs pointed toward the ceiling, a mop of curly black hair between her thighs. Her lover raised his head. I had a flashback to the last 2 trips to the station, in raincoats. They scattered, and I saw them both in all their glory. I screamed, "Tessa! You got a perm!"